been patient. You gave them space when they pulled away. You stayed calm even when they went silent. But here's the truth most people never hear. An avoidant doesn't stop running because you stay. They stop running the moment they realize you might actually walk away. If this kind of insight is what you're here for, subscribe. There's a lot more of this. Here's the misunderstanding that keeps most people stuck. They believe the way to make an avoidant feel safe is to consistently demonstrate that you won't leave. That if you can just prove, over a long enough period, that you are stable and non-threatening and endlessly available, the avoidant will eventually relax into the relationship. That belief is understandable. And it is wrong. Not partially wrong, fundamentally wrong. Because what that approach does, over time, is train the avoidant nervous system to read your presence as guaranteed. And a guaranteed presence is not something the avoidant attaches to. It's something they unconsciously devalue. The avoidant attachment system was built in an environment where connection came with conditions, where closeness had to be earned, managed, or defended. What that system never learned, what it is still trying to learn, is that something genuinely valuable can also be genuinely at risk of being lost. Loss possibility is not a threat to secure attachment. It is the condition that makes real attachment possible. When you remove all possibility of your own departure, when you make yourself infinitely available, infinitely patient, infinitely accommodating, you don't create safety for the avoidant. You create stasis, a relationship with no gravitational pull, nothing to move toward because nothing can be moved away. The final test is not a test you administer to them. It is a threshold you cross within yourself, where you become genuinely, non-manipulatively willing to walk away from what doesn't serve you. And the avoidant, whose entire system is wired to detect authenticity versus performance, will feel the difference immediately. There's a sequence to how this unfolds inside the dynamic. It moves in phases, and each phase builds on the last. The first is what you call the comfort trap phase. This is the period most people are living in when they find this video. The relationship or the situationship or the dynamic, whatever it is, has settled into a pattern. They pull back periodically. You adjust. They return. You receive them. The cycle repeats. Externally, things may look relatively stable. There's contact. There's warmth, sometimes. There are moments that feel close to what you want. Internally, you are slowly, quietly accommodating yourself smaller, making yourself easier to be with by making yourself less present as a full person with real needs and limits. The avoidant during this phase is not consciously exploiting this. They are simply operating inside a dynamic that their nervous system has calibrated as safe, meaning low demand, low risk, low pressure to change. And as long as you remain in this phase, nothing shifts. Not really. The second phase begins with what you could call the accumulation point. There is a moment, different for everyone, but always recognizable in retrospect, where the accumulated weight of small disappointments, unmet needs, and managed reactions reaches a threshold inside you. It's not a dramatic explosion. It's quieter than that. It's the moment where you become genuinely tired, not angry, not resentful in a way you're suppressing. Just done with the version of yourself that keeps adjusting to make this work while the other person makes no equivalent adjustment. Externally, your behavior may barely change at first, but something in your energy shifts. And the avoidant notices. They don't know what they're noticing. They can't necessarily name it. But the signal there, nervous system has been reading. The one that says, this person will stay, this person is secured, starts to produce static. The certainty gets fuzzy. That fuzziness is the beginning of real movement. The third phase is the withdrawal of infinite availability. This is the threshold most people approach but don't fully cross. You stop being endlessly accessible. Not as a strategy, not to make them miss you, not to trigger anxiety on purpose, but because you have genuinely reoriented toward your own life, your own needs, your own standards for what you will continue to invest in. Externally, you become less reactive to their rhythms. Their silence doesn't pull you into pursuit. Their return doesn't immediately restore full access to your attention and energy. Internally, something is clarifying. You are no longer living in the space between their moods. You are living in your own space. And from that space, you are making conscious choices about what you engage with and what you don't. The avoidant, during this phase, enters unfamiliar territory. Their comfort structure has changed. The assumptions no longer hold. And their system, which is always scanning for threat, registers something it genuinely doesn't know how to process. The possibility that you might actually go. The fourth phase is the reckoning phase. This is where the avoidant faces something they have been engineering their entire relational life to avoid. The real, unmanufactured possibility of loss. Not loss as an abstract future risk. Loss as an immediate present reality. And here, one of two things happens. Either the avoidant moves, genuinely moves, toward you, toward accountability, toward the kind of consistent effort that real relationship requires. Or they don't. And that answer, whichever it is the most valuable information the entire dynamic was capable of producing. Because now you know, not what you hoped, not what you feared, what's actually true. Most people, when they sense an avoidant pulling away or going cold, respond by softening their position. They reach toward the relationship. They offer reassurance. They make themselves more available in the hope that warmth will reverse the distance. And the avoidance system receives that as confirmation. The threat was temporary. The availability is restored. The dynamic is safe, meaning unchanged. Now contrast that with what actually works. You feel the pull toward softening. You recognize it. And instead of acting on it, you hold your position. Not cruelly, not with theatrical distance. You simply remain exactly where you arrived. The place where your needs are real, your limits are real, and your willingness to continue investing in something that doesn't reciprocate has genuinely reached its end. You don't announce this. You don't perform it. You just live it. And the difference between performing unavailability as a strategy and actually inhabiting your own standards is something the avoidant, whose nervous system is extraordinarily attuned to, authenticity, will detect without being told. Performance they can wait out. Patience they can outlast. But genuine self-possession? Genuine willingness to choose yourself over the comfort of a familiar dynamic that they cannot manage. That is new information. That changes the calculation. There are 5 principles that govern how you move through this phase with integrity and psychological clarity. The first is called grounded detachment. This is not emotional distance. It is the ability to care about someone genuinely, while simultaneously being unattached to a specific outcome with them. Grounded detachment means your well-being is no longer contingent on their choice. You want the relationship if it becomes what it needs to become. You can release it if it doesn't. Both are real. Neither is performed. The second principle is non-negotiable standard setting. Before this dynamic can shift, you need to know, with specificity, not vague feeling, what you actually require from a relationship in order to stay in it, not a list of demands. A genuine, internal clarity about what constitutes real partnership for you, because you cannot hold a standard you haven't defined, and you cannot communicate one you don't actually believe. The third is called behavioral consistency over time. One moment of self-possession doesn't change a long-established dynamic. It is the sustained maintenance of your new position across multiple interactions, across their attempts to re-establish the old pattern that creates the psychological impact. The avoidant needs to see that this is not a reaction to a bad day. It's a change in who you are. That takes repetition. Hold it. The fourth principle is silence as information. When you stop pursuing, genuinely stop, not as a tactic, the silence you create is full of information. It tells the avoidant, the dynamic has changed. I am not waiting. I am living. Silence used this way is not punishment. It is honest communication through absence. And it is far more legible to the avoidant nervous system than any explanation you could offer. The fifth is called the open door with no waiting room. This is the precise position that creates the most movement in an avoidant. You make clear, through your behavior, that connection with you is genuinely available, but that you are not standing at the door watching for them to arrive. You have moved through the room and out the other side, living your life. If they come through the door, you are present, but you are not parked there. You never were. What this moment is really asking of you is not patience. It's not strategy. It's identity. Because the person who can hold this position, who can genuinely inhabit their own standards without collapsing under the pressure of uncertainty, is not the same person who entered this dynamic hoping to be chosen. That person knows something now. They know that waiting to be chosen is not love. It is the absence of self-selection. They know that infinite accommodation is not virtue. It is the slow erosion of self-respect. They know that making yourself small enough for someone to feel safe does not make you worthy of more. It just makes you smaller. You don't pursue someone into loving you correctly. You become someone who doesn't accept incorrect love. You don't test them to see if they'll stay. You test yourself to see if you'll leave when leaving is what the situation honestly requires. You don't fear being too much. You understand that the right dynamic has room for all of you. Step back from the specifics of this for a moment. The avoidant dynamic is not really about avoidance. It is about what you believe you deserve at the level below conscious thought. The level where you decide, without deciding, how long to wait, how much to adjust, how little to require. Self-worth is not what you claim to have. It is what your behavior reveals you believe. Emotional intelligence is not the ability to understand why someone can't show up for you. It is the ability to let that understanding inform your choices, not just your compassion. Personal power is not the ability to change someone. It is the clarity to know the difference between someone who can't change and someone who won't, and the willingness to make decisions based on that difference. The final test is not something you do to an avoidant. It is something you do for yourself. It is the moment you stop being available for a version of love that asks you to need less, feel less, require less, be less, and start being fully, unapologetically available only for the version that doesn't. That's not a test anyone else can pass or fail for you. That's a standard only you can set. And the person who sets it and holds it has already won the only thing that actually mattered.